Just about ready to get underway. Thank you. Ready? Morena koutou, nau mai ki te hui o te kaunihira o ngā roto o Rotorua I tēnei wā. Good morning everyone and welcome to the Strategy, Policy and Finance Committee meeting this morning. Got a beautiful morning, sun is out, our meeting is being live streamed. A reminder to everyone to turn off your mobile phones, and it would be really good if you could actually put them off the table so that you are fully present for the meeting. We'll have a break at 11 a.m. to warm up if you need a cup of tea. We have got quite a lot of presentations today. I don't have any apologies for early departure, so it's great that we can see everyone here for the full meeting. I'm now going to ask Dr. Morgan if he could open our meeting with a karakia.
Ai, tēnā koe, Madam Chair, Sandra. Tērā koutou katoa, nei rā waku mihi kia koutou. Ai, ka tika, ka tīmata me te karakia, nō re kino I tātou. E tō matu te rangi ki tapu tō ingo. Ko koe te tīmatanga me te whakamutunga ngā mea katoa, ko te rata te turutanga o te mahi pono, te mana Māori motaki. Ane mātou e pā. Ane mātou he whai tēnei huara e pāna ki te kaunihira a ngā tangata I tēnei rohe. Okay. Manaki tia mai mātou, wā pōnonga I tēnei wā, e mahi nei I a mātou mahi, me te painga o ngā tangata o te kaunihira o ngā roto o Rotorua. I tēnei wā hoki, he wā ua, hoa tu aroha tu awhina ki rātou, ngā mea mauiwi, ngā whānau pani, ke roto ngā whare maha o ngā motu, I raro I te maru roa o tēnei te kowhiore te COVID. I tēnei wā hoki, awhina tia mai mātou te kaunihira, ki te tino ako, ki mai nei tohu o tēnei wā. Ko tēnei tō mātou tono I a koe, ko I karaiti hoki tō mātou ariki. Āmeni. Mauri ora tātou.
Āmeni. Dr. Morgan. I'd like to now call for apologies. I have an apology from Councillor Wang for lateness, Mr. Thomas and Councillor Okawa-Tate. I'll withdraw that apology for Councillor Okawa-Tate. She's just going to join us now on the live stream. Could I ask that for a mover and a seconder that the apologies be accepted? Moved Councillor Maxwell, seconded Councillor Kumar. All those in favour please say aye. Aye. Against carried. Declarations of interest. There don't appear to be any this morning. Morena, Councillor Okawa-Tate. Are there any urgent items that are not on the agenda? Your Worship the Mayor and then Mrs Trumper.
Madam Chair, thank you. This isn't an urgent item. We've all done our standing orders training, but I wish to raise a point of order, and the point of order is in relation to misrepresentation of a statement that has been made by a councillor. I've asked that you all get the statement in front of you. The Councillor McPherson, with the Residents and Ratepayer Association, put out a post saying Springfield Golf Course alert, bulldozers imminent. This is already causing anxiety and will raise anxiety quite unnecessarily because it is false and misleading information, and I don't believe it can wait till operations and monitoring, and I would seek clarification on this statement before us now in public.
Well, thank you, Worship. I'll accept that point of order and I'd ask the CE just to comment briefly on this.
Through the Chair, if I hand this possibly to Stavros, who will be best placed to be able to respond.
Thank you.
Kia ora. Through you, Madam Chair, I just heard that, that commentary. Can I remind elected members and the community at large, I suppose, that in terms of creating a future resilience and capacity for our stormwater management as required, under various factors, including climate change and so on, we have presented to this council some time ago a broad district master plan for stormwater. That master plan I highlighted at a high level the potential areas of stormwater management, including detention dams. However, progressing through execution of those areas requires a significant phased approach that identifies the technical feasibility of these areas, ensures that we have consider fatal flows, design, consenting processes, and so on, and obviously effective consultation with potentially affected parties. Any of these phases will go through the master planning, the feasibility design, the detailed design, the consenting approach, the execution or the promotion or the recommendation of a contract that will come to this elected body to make decisions upon. So with regards to that particular event around the Springfield area, while the master plan identifies that area as a potential detention and retention area for stormwater for the future, the phase we are at this point in time is a very high level identification of the area. If works would require to take place in the future, they will follow those phases of feasibility, fatal flows, design assessment, consenting, contractual agreements that will come in front of this elected members' body to make decisions. And we are nowhere near yet at that point in time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Michael, for that clarification, and perhaps I know Councillor McPherson's not here today, but perhaps he might be listening online and he would care to just amend his post to reflect what is the correct situation. So thank you for that clarification. Mrs Trumper, do you have anything?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I really would like to raise this matter in light of the determination from the Local Government Commission. I realise that it's probably, well, I want to raise it in public so that the rural community actually see that they have been awarded award, and now we obviously have an issue with timing and a consultation around what we do for the bill. And so I'm just signalling I would like to have a discussion with councillors around this matter.
Thank you, Mrs Trumper. I won't take that as an urgent item now, but maybe we could talk about that at the end of the meeting in confidential. I'm just mindful that there is still a process to be gone through with the local bill for a select committee. Those submissions close on the 20th of April, and I don't believe it would be appropriate for us to be, as a council or councillors, making any further public statements that might prejudice any of the submissions to that process. So we'll deal with that at the end of the meeting. Thank you. Councillor Maxwell.
Madam Chair, is it possible, are we allowed to just ask questions of clarification on what we've received? Just for me, like the last paragraph, I don't understand what it means. Is it possible for someone who knows what it means? Okay.
We'll leave that till the end of the meeting, Councillor Maxwell, but I don't believe that it's appropriate that we talk any further about the local bill process during this meeting. Now going to move to confirmation of the minutes of the Strategy, Policy and Finance Committee meeting of the 10th of March 2022. Can I ask for a mover and a seconder for the motion that the minutes of the Strategy, Policy and Finance Committee meeting held on the 10th of March 2022 be confirmed as a true and correct record? Moved Councillor Donaldson, seconded Councillor Yates. Is there any amendments to those motions? If not, I intend to put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. I'd now like to invite Pani and your team to the table. I understand that you will introduce all of your presenters. I think we have some available on Zoom. One, sorry. So welcome to Taru. We have Associate Professor Amanda Yates, Professor Bronwyn Hayward, and Professor Angus McFarlane, along with Jude Pani and Te Taru White.
Tēnā rā tātou katoa, e mihi ana ki a koe e te tiamana. E te korumatua Steve, me koutou hoki ngā memo o te kaunihira, ngā memo o tēnei committee, me ngā kai tautoko, ngā kai whakahaere, kei te mihi o te kia koutou. Nō reira tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Well, thank you, Madam Chair. It's a pleasure to be presenting in person for a change and not actually having your eyeballs glued to the screen, even though it might have been convenient, it was very tiring. So it's nice to be present in your presence today. Yes, look, if I may just briefly present Professor Angus McFarlane, one of our own from here. Angus is the Professor of Māori Research at Canterbury University, come here to, in a way, to bolster our research effort, has been a part of the research team and led the research team effort in Ohonamutu, looking at opportunities for data resets and planning in that particular space. So he's here as part of the team today. And of course, I'll let Jude introduce our guests on board AUT. Again, our research effort to look at basically a wellbeing compass that we have framed up on the back of the Tiara Vision 2050, which has expectations of a transformational change for our people based on wellbeing emphasis and focus. As you'll understand, the government is really intent on changing the fabric of society by introducing more wellbeing focus, albeit the fact that it's coming at us like a tsunami and it's very, very difficult to challenge for our people to address properly. So we've looked to organise our thinking within Tātou Te Arawa around a wellbeing compass that in the space where housing is now a big issue, we would implore, I guess, at the end of the day, thinking around wellbeing and how that's placed in the strategies and the development of housing per se. So with that said, I'm going to pass across to Jude, our mana hautu, to lead through the process and to articulate what we mean by this wellbeing compass as a vehicle to move forward in the progress we've already made in that space, both with researchers and opportunities on the ground. Kia ora tātou, Jude.
Excuse me, Jude, just before you continue with your presentation, just I'd like to ask Councillor Maxwell if he could mihi to our manahiri.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Tuatahi ke te mihi o kia koutou nau mai haere mai ki tēnei te whare o te kaunihera o Rotorua. Tō whare, o whare, o ku whare. Ke te mihi o kia koe te whanaunga Professor Angus, he kairo o tūturu Ngāti Rangi Wawihi ingo. Ai, pai tērā. McFarlane, Ngāti Rangi Wawihi, Ngāti Whakaue. Nau mai haere mai ki tō takiwa, tō rohe, te aroa, nau mai haere mai ki tēnei. I iti taku kōrero i tēnei wā nō reira. Sincere warm welcome to our council chamber, the whanaunga, Professor Angus. And I'd just briefly like to place on record so that it's here that I was fortunate to be with you in Wellington Governor General's House only 3-4 months ago when you received a Queen's Honour for the mahi that you're doing in Aotearoa. So tino pai tērā, mā te ato koutou e manaki, kia aro no tātou katoa. Nau mai, haere mai.
Thank you, Councillor Maxwell, and very warm welcome to our visitors. And Jude, over to you.
Yeah. Morena. Thank you, Madam Chair, Madam Mayor and councillors, Mrs Trumper, and of course our wonderful Te Tatau appointed members sitting around the table. Thank you for the opportunity to present to the committee today one of the work streams that Te Tatau has been leading out for some time.
Jude, Madam Chair, can I just ask if Angus would like to respond to the mihi?
Oh.
Press the button, Angus.
Kore hi te manu, takiri mai te ata, ka ao, ka awatea, tihei mauri ora. Tuatai e mihi ana ki a koe kepa, mo te whakatūwheratanga o tā tātou nei hui, mā te karakia. Tuarua, ka nui te mihi atu ki a tātou, kua whakamininga mai nei ki raru i te maru o tēnei wāhi mātou ranga o tātou i tēnei wā. Tēnā koe Trevor, moto mihi, e tū ana te reo o Ngāti Rangi i Wewehi, nei rā te mihi atu ki a koe. Koutou katoa, ko te aroa e waru pūmanua, mai maki tū ki Tongariro. Anei tō ponanga, e hoki mai anō, i wainganui a koutou i tēnei wā, hei whakawhiti ngā whakaaro me ngā kōrero e pāna ki tēnei kaupapa. Nā reira, kaore he nui, kaore he kūmearoa te kōrero i tēnei wā, ka nui te hare koa o te ngākau mo tēnei hokinga mai i wainganui a koutou e ngā whanaunga. Tēnā koutou katoa.
Is she zooming in? We can't get her. Oh.
Kia ora. So I, like the Mayor, I'm assuming that Amanda's my colleague, zooming in from Auckland University of Technology. So hopefully Amanda we're doing a tag team. I'm presenting the first part, and the first part is around the community-based research, actually applying the research to a neighbourhood level. And then Amanda's going to come in with Angus to talk about that bigger picture research kaupapa and this robust academic robustness that's underpinning this research. So anyway, thank you, and thank you to Gina for facilitating the opportunity for Te Tatau and Auckland University to present today. We'll start off with, of course, which Te Taru talked about, is the Tiara Vision 2050, and again, like all of Te Tatau's work program and strategic approach, it's all underpinned by the Tiara Vision. And for this particular work stream, it's the strategic direction Tiara Tangata that is driving this kaupapa for Te Tatau. And you'll see, I'm sorry that these slides are really busy. I'm not smart enough on PowerPoints to zero in to other than present the whole page. So this really is around the Te Arawa housing strategy, and what the people said in the vision was they wanted to see measurable gains in terms of the suite of strategy. And I know that Te Arawa partnered in the development of the Homes and Thriving Community Strategic Framework, but Te Tatau and the board felt that the fundamental considerations of that framework could be extended. So this is where Te Tatau put on its work program a Te Arawa model of housing and set about looking to how it could add more value to the current housing challenges facing our whole region by focusing on detailed models and action that advance Te Arawa housing and papakainga aspiration from a Māori to Māori order base. So here again, I'm sorry, it's a very busy, although we do deal with one pages at Te Tatau, it's our one-page work program, and for today's presentation, we're focusing on that top stream, the Te Arawa model of housing, which consists of, in the first box, the getting Te Arawa endorsement of the compass. The next box is around engagement with our land blocks to actually document aspirations of over 1,000 land blocks. And the next one is around the actually running some case studies with some of the land blocks. And then we've got partnership, and the final one is the urban development layer. So I want to now just spend a little bit of time, and it's really appropriate from Te Tato's perspective that Professor Angus McFarlane is with us today, because back in 2018, Angus approached, well, I think it was Monty and Jeff Rolleston, about an opportunity for Whakaui to be involved with University of Canterbury around a research project that was being developed at that time. So Te Tato jumped on board back in 2018, and the result of that, and Te Taru talked about, was Ohini Mutu Pā working with Te Tato and the University of Canterbury to develop a GIS tool to capture the narratives and the mātauranga Māori in the Pā. And it's pleasing to note today that their village have actually now got an incorporated society. They're working directly with the University of Canterbury to now implement this mātauranga Māori tool. So Te Tato is really privileged to be able to walk alongside our university partners and collaborate on some really robust research which is underpinning our work stream. In this particular instance, it's really world leading, and you'll hear from Amanda later, who's just doing some amazing work. I think she's an associate professor. Amazing work in this urban collaborative research space. So yeah, Te Tato's jumped on. We're very privileged, and you know, we started the relationship back in 2018 with the University of Canterbury, and that is now with the Auckland University of Technology in terms of developing this wellbeing compass. Again, it's busy. I'm going to leave it to my colleague Amanda to dissect it and break down the elements and give all the background to this research. But we've been working with the Auckland University of Technology, Te Tato has, for about 18 months. And the elements of the wellbeing compass, we have workshopped and worked through and modified some of the language so we don't all have to look up dictionaries every time we look at one of the spokes in the wellbeing compass. And it's still developing. We've tested it with a few hapu, with individuals, and Te Arawa got feedback, and we're now at a point where we've got this wellbeing compass that we will now go out to Te Arawa and get mandate for. And so what does success look like? And I've just put some words up on the board. That's from Te Tato's perspective. Success looks like an innovative Māori order approach to housing and papakainga development and urbanism in general. And Amanda will talk about that broader urban perspective, because as I said earlier, Te Tato's worked on the neighbourhood, on the papakainga, on the land block development, but Amanda and her research colleagues have got this big urban picture which includes energy and public transport and other elements of the approach. So I won't read it all out, but it's about transformational set of holistic mātauranga Māori embedded Te Arawa values, circular zero carbon, ecosystem outcomes, climate change. So it's very ambitious. It's very ambitious, but anyway, that's what success looks like. And I thought I'd just finish off with a final slide. Once again, our one-pager at Te Tato. The board likes things focused and in one page if we can. And this is the 8 streams that Te Tato sees as the Te Arawa model for housing. and some of them, Te Tato's leading out, those top 3 on the left, embedding this wellbeing compass into urban development, the papakainga, whenua Māori, that's all part of our work program, about running some case studies, about mapping the aspirations and getting it into a spatial plan format of whenua Māori. And the other 5, I won't go round them all, but just rest assured Te Tato is either partnering with someone or supporting someone to deliver that aspect of what Te Tato sees as a te aroa model for housing. So that's just my few slides to Taru or Angus. So before we hand over to Amanda, I'm not sure whether you want to...
Yeah, just very briefly on that slide that is up there. I mean, this is a blend of underpinning academic excellence with pragmatism on the ground and being able to align the two to ensure that actually, because the system likes things being measured, we like to get a sense of measure in the outcomes and the values that we're propositioning here. And so what better way to do that, to bring in the merge of academic excellence from the institutions that you've heard from our own people. Both Amanda and Angus are from here and attained academic excellence, and also on the ground being able to penetrate the mindset of our people on the ground. And it's the premise here is that it's actually, and I'll always say this, what is good for Te Aroha in the space and building it is good for the community. And so I'm going to pass across to Angus now, because those particular slabs up there talk about procurement, for example, education, talks about employment. In this case, some of you would have heard about Datacom and other things, working in that space to bring employment into Rotorua. The other thing is about access to capital, being able to facilitate access to capital through building capability of our people to engage in that space. It's not a handout, it's a hand up, and it has to be focused on that type of thing. So these are the sorts of transformational changes that we're embedding in this particular compass. So Angus, kei a koe.
Thank you, Te Taru, and thank you, Jude, for the excellent work that is being carried out here at home. Thank you again, Trevor, for the welcome. And it's good to be back, as I have already alluded to. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. Is Amanda coming in yet? She's listening?
Yep, hi.
Kia ora, whanaunga.
Kia ora.
Okay, well, I'll hand over to you in a minute then, Amanda, but I just want to say what a privilege it is, again, to be working with Te Aroha, to be working with Te Tato, and to be elaborating or expanding on the initial meeting that we had in 2018. There's been a thrust by the government for national science challenges, and there are 11 national science challenges in actual fact, but one of them is building better homes, towns and cities. And they have been going, they're on their second tranche now, 5-year tranche. So we're in the middle of the second tranche, so they've been going for a little while. And this particular functionality of the National Science Challenge is headed by Amanda. And the universities are really keen, very enthusiastic on building collaborations with communities. And, you know, it's just such a privilege to build the collaboration with Te Tato and with all of you here, if you're willing. And the collaboration goes further than that. We are encouraged to build relationships with other universities. And it so happened that the expertise for this particular kaupapa lay with another relation, with Amanda at Auckland University of Technology. We keep, it's called keeping it in the whānau. So it's, I'm going to hand back to you, Amanda, and then maybe a little bit later on I can round up with a whakakapi.
Kia ora, kia ora. Thank you, Angus. Can you hear me well enough? Yeah. And thank you, Jude, Te Taru, Angus, for this introduction. And yes, it's a real privilege to work with you. Thank you to the Madam Chair, to the Mayor and Councillors for this opportunity to talk. So yes, I'm an Associate Professor at AUT and I'm the National Science Challenge Research Program Leader for Urban Wellbeing. And our National Science Challenge research focuses on analysing and delivering healthier and happier cities. Particularly, we're working on just transitions to zero carbon energy, ecological regeneration, and circular bioeconomies for cities. Next slide, please. Jude, if you're able to drive that. Thank you. So one aspect of our research is the development of transition tools that can help communities to quickly strategise and operationalise change for modi ora or holistic urban wellbeing. And as Jude and Te Taru and Angus have said, we've worked with Te Arawa to co-create a housing and a neighbourhood level tool from our Kit of Parts compass as a means of operationalising the Modi-led 2050 vision for housing. And this work has real relevance nationally and internationally at this time of climate and wider ecological emergency. Next slide, please. So what is at stake at the moment? Well, the sixth report of the Intergovernmental Panel for Climate Change, released just last month, says that what's now at stake is a livable future for all. They say we need to urgently transform our energy and wider urban systems to protect our planet's ecological life support system and climate, which is now in a state of emergency. Next slide, please. They say we can't do business as usual, things need to change. Next slide. And so the Modi Order Compass is a tool for helping action that change. It's a circular to-do list for change. It compiles pragmatic urban strategies and actions to help cities transition to being ecologically regenerative, biodiverse carbon sinks that have zero carbon energy systems and circular bioeconomies, all to meet this moment of climate and ecological emergency and to go beyond that to deliver thriving well-being. So Modi is at the centre of cities in this research program. The compass puts Modi, or holistic, social, cultural and ecological well-being, at the centre of urban strategy, policy and actions. Next slide, please. And so planetary well-being also becomes a defining frame or boundary for urban policy design and action here. Planetary well-being is referenced in this compass in the outer blue-green circles that represent balanced planetary temperature, balanced water cycle, ecological diversity, ecological integrity, or the absence of pollution, and human well-being. Next slide, please. So Te Toa Te Arawa has presented the Housing Compass, co-created from our Compass Kit of Parts. We can move to the next slide. And what we also want to take time here to discuss is a further collaborative opportunity between Te Tautau, the research team, and potentially Council. And that's around the potential of an urban-scaled wellbeing compass. We have done an initial workshop with Council staff in Te Tautau Te Arawa. The Housing Compass was used as a base for this first go at an urban compass. And we lay on a zero carbon energy layer, which you can see in the yellow bullseye circle toward the centre there. And other city level items can be added, for example, in regards to transport or mobility or access or civic engagement methods. So the checklist is on the side of the urban compass, and this gives specific actions or approaches for transition that the international climate change bodies and our own government says we need to action. The urban wellbeing checklist includes actions for zero carbon energy, for ecosystem regeneration, for a circular bioeconomy, for active and zero carbon transport and mobility, for regenerative buildings and infrastructures, and for community wellbeing systems and initiatives. Next slide, please. So how might an urban wellbeing compass support Rotorua Council to deliver on social, cultural and ecological wellbeing? Well, the compass focuses organisational discussion and attention towards MODI or holistic wellbeing. It socialises this as a key organisational ethic and aspiration and method. It sets a direction for key policy, and it provides a coordination or a meeting point across diverse council units. This is internationally unique research that's showing world-leading innovation in urban governance. Rotorua can provide international and national leadership here in regards to wellbeing-led governance and treaty-led or bicultural governance approaches. So we're hoping that from this meeting and from further discussion, we can get an agreement to collaborate further on an urban wellbeing compass with Te Tau or by our research team and council, and hoping to move for an agreement process.
Thank you, Amanda, for the presentation and to outline so articulately the kaupapa in front of us all today. Very briefly, I just want to comment on the robustness and worthwhileness of the research and the research process. And I want to say that this particular project has so much potential for Te Arawa, for the council, for the people of Rotorua. And I want to talk about some mana aspects, if I may. And there are 5 of them. And I'll spend just a few moments on each. The first is mana motuhake. This is research that is badly needed. It has identified very much the imperatives that are needed to cope with the uncertainties of the world today. So the mana motuhake of this project is to be applauded. The second one is mana tū. That is a sense of resilience. And we sense the resilience that is amongst all of us, and the resilience of the Te Arawa people and the people of Rotorua to dig deep, to see the worthwhileness in the content and the context of such an approach to research and to life. The third mana construct is mana ukai pō. So having the community at heart, the ukai pō. I've already referred to Te Arawa e Warupu Manawa. That is a beautiful saying, one that we can all be so proud of, the 8 beating hearts of Te Arawa. And it gives me great pleasure to rub that in Canterbury from time to time. I don't overdo it. But I do say it from time to time. Such is the pride that we have in our ukai pō. I'll leave that one there and move on to the fourth. And this comes from a Māori leader that left us relatively recently, Dr. Heko Hohepa. And he left a legacy at Toi Ohomai, and that was Mana Tangatarua. The name of the marae at Toi Ohomai is Tangatarua. And the connotation there is people working together. And that was Heko all over, so humble, but so powerful, and encouraging biculturalism. And we've already heard that word today. It's not a word, it's a term, it's a reality. And the final one, the mana of this project is mana whānau. In the final analysis, the housing, the constructs, the Māori order that was introduced by Te Taru, expanded on by Jude, and articulated further by Amanda, is a plea for whānau to have a better life. And this is what this Māori Ora Compass is largely about, not all about, but it's very much a thrust of today's imperatives in an uncertain world. So, kaore kumea ro te kōrero o tēnei wā, e puta ake ana ngā whakaaro, me ngā kōrero e pāna ki tēnei kaupapa. Tēnā koutou.
Well, thank you very much to our presenters for that presentation. Are there any questions for clarification? Councillor Kuma?
Through the chair, thank you very much. Thank you very much for the presentation this morning. Keeping it very simple, just wanted to know that if this is the evolution and where we're heading, if Ora thriving is going to become a way of life, and as Professor Angus has mentioned, that there has been a lot of research gone into this. Has this model been successful anywhere? Where is this evolution coming from? And how can we, if we take this as our path of our journey into the future, is this model ever been worked successfully somewhere?
I'm going to hand over to you, Amanda, but in the first instance, what I can say is that it's grounded on empirical evidence. It's gone back to the literature from all over the globe. It has been tested and it has been approved by others who have gone before us, but it hasn't been tested in this sort of community as yet. So there's been a lot of work that has happened before we get to this point. Amanda.
Thanks, Angus. Yeah, that's absolutely right. And it's a great question. The work is based on my full-time research over the past 20-some years, and it certainly aligns with relevant international and national research. For the past 12 years, I've run urban research labs focused on Mauri ora and urban regeneration. And this is part of an iteration of work that's occurred over those past 12 years, in which time I've worked with councils in various ways, done a number of different Mauri ora or urban regeneration projects. This is stage 2 of this urban wellbeing research. So stage 1 started in 2017 to 2020, in which we developed the idea of the compass and the kind of structure of it as a kit set, which can be taken into places, to communities, which allows communities to co-create their own vision of what holistic wellbeing, social, cultural, ecological wellbeing looks like to them. And so in this stage 2, part of the process, we've now come to Rotorua as the first place in New Zealand to work on this for the very reason that Angus spoke about so poetically, which is this is where my whānau is, this is where the history is, this is where the connections are. And also because I see that Rotorua is really leading in the country in terms of co-governance models, and I think has some real innovation and some leadership already going on here, which is the model for co-creation. Is you go to the places where you see that people are already doing the work, and you try to support. So yes, it's part of a long-running line of research. The basics are very well known, very understood. We've actually understood how to do urban wellbeing since at least the 1970s. We've had a lot of the technology in place for that, and it's really been a cultural and an economic issue and a system change issue that we haven't actually made these changes yet. But the changes are coming. They're already being legislated at an international or national level, and the opportunity here is to get in front of it, to make it work for us, to seek holistic wellbeing in a way that brings value across all aspects of our urban communities. It brings value economically, it brings value ecologically, it brings value in terms of our social structures, and particularly for Māori, it really it's very meaningful in the way that it can bring Māori thinking around holistic wellbeing directly into the way cities are run, which is necessary at this time of real ecological crisis. Now's the time to be making these changes. Kia ora.
And if I may add, Madam Chair, if I may just add a very quick comment from Tato's perspective. You know, this is not academic research for research's sake, and they're not parking documents into a cubbyhole somewhere. This is about applying it on the ground, so Tato is very keen to activate the connection on the ground and implement this with our research partners.
Thank you, Tiara. Tataru, Your Worship, the Mayor.
Kia ora, Angus and Amanda, and thank you for coming with Te Tato this morning. It's probably a journey that we're on, but my question might be back. Jude, you did mention housing, hapori housing, where we attempted to have an iwi-led reference group as part of developing our housing strategy that built on our sustainable cities work that we did earlier. I'm just not sure where or how. I love the compass idea, and I love it as a guiding tool, but is this longitudinal research that's going to accompany us on implementing our housing plan, or is it looking at what we did a lot of community consultation on developing our housing strategy? How do we make this fit rather than feeling we're plonking it in as an overlay?
If I may, Your Mayor, Your Worship the Mayor, we are well aware of the Council's housing program and housing process in progress here. We've made it very clear that as we conduct research and development of this wellbeing compass, There will be no sense to impugn the work that's been done already, and I understand with Ngāti Whakaue, and you're not meaning that, but I just want to clear the way, the fact that Ngāti Whakaue and the conversations that are happening in the housing space or some of the iwi hapu, kei te pai tērā, this was about resetting some of the thinking on a wider scope with our research colleagues and friends and whanaunga to actually look at how we might add value in that space. And I think that's the point. It's not about trying to squeeze one into the other. It's actually about how do we reset in a way that creates maximum value out of what we're trying to do here in terms of developing a wide and encompassing housing strategy. So absolutely acknowledging where the council are at, happy to work into that space and to actually help to add the value. Jude? Yeah,
and absolutely, Madam Mayor, this is seen as extending that. Tiara participated in that in the thriving communities, and this is seen as an extension to that and an adding value to that. It certainly is not sort of an overlay or a parallel process. It's just extending that from a Tiara perspective.
We're trying to see what does it look like. You talked about success, and we certainly get that and need that. How does what we do now change so that we make sure that we are constantly referencing the compass to measure our outcomes? How do we do that?
You know, I think that is actually, it's a fantastic question, and it's a sort of central question to system change as well. How do we actually effect system change? We've known what to do for many decades, and the sort of structure of this research is around co-creation. So it's about acknowledging that we don't know and working together collectively to find the ways through. And the co-creation workshops through which we generate these compasses are a really excellent way to raise these questions and to benefit from collective intelligence. So, you know, working together to explore how these tools can be used. Certainly in terms of socialising it across the council, if all of your council units are at least aware of it and are thinking of Māori order, holistic wellbeing as central to their frame of endeavour, that immediately starts to shift a certain orientation. It starts to draw attention in certain ways. But in terms of the individual units within the council, the compass can help to determine actual directions. For example, we're suggesting a key thing to be doing at the moment is ecological intensification alongside housing intensification. So it's about giving very pragmatic, quite simple, but big picture indications of important directions to be taken within this larger framework, which is saying collectively, as an organisation, we understand that we're not just doing climate change, we're not just flipping to zero carbon, we understand we also have to do ecological intensification because that's primary to meeting, you know, climate change agenda. And we also need to be shifting to a circular bioeconomy. So it's giving a range of different examples of how to sort of meet this very complex situation. So as a holistic tool, it's helping to address a very complex situation. So there's a range of different ways that it can help within the workflow, but it is intended as a guide. It doesn't take over any of your existing approaches. It simply helps to orient the choices that are being made. Yeah,
thanks.
That's the intention.
Thank you, Professor Yates. We've got final two questions. Councillor Tapsell, then Councillor Maxwell.
Oh, sorry, I think Dr Morgan had a question too, but
sorry.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, through you. Ngā mihi nui kia koutou mō tō kōrero tēnei rā, me o mahi I roto I o mātou hapori me mō Aotearoa. Thank you so much for your presentation this morning and for your work, not only with our community, but for our country too. I want to acknowledge that your ability to bring such complex issues together into an understandable compass. You know, when I look at that, I think there are decades of work of planning behind that. And thank you, Amanda. You said something today that really resonated. You said we've known what to do for many decades. And we have known what to do for many decades. And we've known the challenges that were coming, not only for our communities, but for our environment as well. So to be given this work to consider for council, I'm very appreciative for, and I also want to acknowledge your plea that you want whānau to have a better life. And we want that too. So absolutely, I can see where there are areas for us to co-create and to further strengthen our co-governance models when we look at how we can improve Rotorua for not only meeting needs for now, but for future generations. But I don't want this great work to just be tucked away into another file. I want action on this, and I want us to move on it quickly because our community just can't wait. So I wonder if it is worthwhile noting as action point or a recommendation that we will take this compass, we will take the research that you have done, and we will see how we can work together and co-create, because you have been quite clear that you are still seeking something on this slide and you're seeking guidance from council and an agreement to collaborate. Personally, I see great advantages in that, but I wonder if we could formally proceed on that as quickly as possible.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Tapsell. I think that's a good suggestion, given that we're still working on our housing strategy and our future development strategy, and we can't avoid that plea when it's our whole community that we actually need to make a better life for. So thank you for that suggestion, Councillor Tapsell. We'll take that on board. I understand that Dr Morgan also had a question, so perhaps if Councillor Maxwell could keep it short and quick, we could perhaps fit in one last question from Dr Morgan as well. Thank you, Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, thank you, Amanda and Professor Hikairo for the presentation. Timing is so important, and I think for what we're looking at now, even our planners recently have had meetings with us. At the moment, our 3 urban marae, Ohinamutu, Whakarewarewa and Ngāpuna, are receiving correspondence, letters in their letterboxes, huis, and they're asked to look at what they would like for the future for their urban villages. I'm supportive, definitely, of what you're doing here with, and I love the kupus you're using, mana ukaipo, mana whānau, and all that. So I'm supportive of it, of course, but with what I've just mentioned, do you think the links with what's happening, that we have to have some decisions made by August, I think, this year, that this is a pathway helping our people in those 3 important areas?
The question you're asking us, or was the comment?
You know, it's with especially what's happening for the 3 urban marae, Ohinamutu, Whakarewarewa and Ngāpuna, with what the presentation we received this morning. Will that also help our people in those areas achieve some of the goals we all want?
I think I can answer that. Sorry, where you go, Amanda.
Yeah, no, I was going to say that I'll wait for you to speak to that first, but just to say that we do have money set aside for specific small case studies to start the next section of the project, and we've been really urgently trying to land those for a year now. So, and we've been talking about the urban marae, the potential for that. So really, it's just about setting up the relationships and getting a sense of what the opportunities are. But we have funding. We're an action lab. We're about transformative action. So we don't just do research and then leave it. We do research and we try and get it built on the ground. I'm an architect and that's what I do. So we're certainly, that's very good timing for us. And we really want to just meet the need as best we can. Yeah, so I'll take it back to you, Te Taru. Thank you.
I'll leave it there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr Morgan.
Ai, nei rau mihi a kōrua ngā ahoranga I mai tēnei tira, o tira tēnā koutou. So just congratulating just congratulating Angus and Amanda on this excellent presentation. And I think for us as the council, it's an excellent opportunity. I'm involved with the Natural and Environmental Built Environment Act policy and that sort of thing at that level. And I can tell you that this is where it's heading. It's actually heading to be more cognizant of both ways of knowing. The way of knowing that's been brought from afar, and also the way of knowing that's Indigenous to this place. And Tania touched on it. I think this is a brilliant opportunity for the council because this is where it's heading. And this gives us an opportunity to start moving in that direction before the actual reforms and that become law. Seems to be a really generous offer, and I think we're really fortunate that a lot of this mātauranga is actually originating from right here. So that's my acknowledgement. I think, yeah, it's brilliant. I do want to finish though, just in terms of the acknowledgement of your recent accolades, Angus, but not to forget that Trevor was acknowledged only this week for his achievements in Te Ao Kapahaka. So very humble. Kia ora, Trevor, well done for his contribution to kapa. So we've got excellence in the room. I think we'd be silly not to take advantage of the opportunity offered. Kia ora tātou.
Thank you, Dr Morgan, and also for that acknowledgement of Councillor Maxwell. Congratulations. Because you didn't ask a question, I'm going to allow Councillor Rokawa take the final question.
Thank you, kia ora tātou. Tēnā koe, Professor McFarlane, and your team with you, or your colleagues with you. Yeah, Madam Chair, I don't have a question. I would just like to make a comment, please.
Sure.
Thank you. Look, thank you very much for all the work that has been done on this plan. I think it's an excellent plan, and I'd like to think that Council, that we will look at that, and as we move forward on our housing plan, on our own housing plan, we will look very carefully to see that that we can utilise and pick up and incorporate much of what you've put in, well, much of what we see in that compass. The other thing that I would like to say, excuse me, is that it is quite often, and I've seen this, and we see it right now, in fact, for local body politicians to get their head around the word of cultural, social, and ecological change required to look at things anew, to look at things differently. And I think therein lies a big challenge, actually, for us when we wish to socialise them, and particularly put it in relation to our own housing plan. But I do want to thank you for what we've seen. There is definitely a need, not only within Te Aroha, Rotorua, our Rotorua district, but also other places around the country. So thank you so much for the work that's gone on into this plan, not only lately, but as I heard from some years. So thank you very much. Kia ora.
Thank you, Councillor Okawa-Tate, and I'd just like to echo those thanks to Professor McFarlane and Professor Amanda Yates, Tataru and Jude. Thank you very much for coming to present this morning. I think we've heard the message loud and clear. I think we've demonstrated a willingness to work together in partnership. There is much work still to be done, and I think we have an action point noted for us to be continuing to work with Te Tātou o Te Arawa to deliver on the urban wellbeing compass. So thank you very much.
Excuse me, Madam Chair, can I just make a quick comment? Because I thought it was just questions in that part. Ka pai, thank you. I would just like to acknowledge my tuakana. It was about 4 years ago when Amanda first mentioned to me, who can I speak to get this rolling? Amanda is my tuakana. Her father was my mother's older brother, Dr. David Yates. So it's just been an absolute honour to sit here, listen to my cousin, and to see it come to fruition and making the connections not only with Council but also with Te Tatau. Me mihi ka tika ki a koe, Uncle Angus, nau anō hoki tēnei o ngā kākano i poia. But to have the collective of intelligence within our own, by our own, for our own, is just so powerful. So me mihi ka tika ki a koe, Amanda. Finally, we might be in a position to be seeing this come to fruition in the not too distant future. So, koira noi ho tāku. Ngā mihi kia koutou.
Kia ora, Councillor Yates. Does anyone need a 5-minute warm-up, or you're happy to carry on? 5-minute break for a quick warm-up, because I think the temperature in here is pretty cold, so you might need to do a few star jumps, so 5 minutes. Going to move on to staff reports. The Waste Management and Minimisation Plan 2022 to 2028. Can I ask for a mover and a seconder for the motion that the report Waste Management and Minimisation Plan 2022 to 2028 be received? Moved Councillor Yates, seconded Councillor Wang. All those in favour please say aye. Against, carried. I'd like to invite Stavros Michael and Prashant Praveen to overview the report. And is Nikki joining you too? Perhaps on the other side, Nikki, so we can see you would be good. Thank you. I understand that we'll just have a short presentation from Prashant, since the councillors have already heard, I think, some of the presentation at one of the recent forums. So over to you, Prashant.
Kia ora koutou. I've got a small presentation on the Waste Management and Minimisation Plan. Waste Minimization and Management Plan, it's a key requirement for councils. This is a regulatory requirement under the Waste Minimization Act. Councils must review their existing waste minimization plan every 6 years and adopt a new one. Our current WMMP was adopted by the council in 2016, and it's valid until end of this month. So we started the review process in December 2020, and there are several steps in the review process. The first step is to prepare a report called Waste Assessment. So Waste Assessment is basically a summary of where we are, where do we want to be, and how will we reach there. So that report was approved by the council in April 2021. Subsequently, it was reviewed by the Ministry for the Environment, and they approved it. We started work on the new WMMP later in 2021, and in December, we made a presentation to this committee on that draft plan that we wanted to consult on. The public consultation happened in February this year, and now we are here with the outcome of that consultation. People were given two options. One option was that, yes, they agree with the proposed plan, and the second option was that they have some feedback. And you see in the graph that shows the engagement. I think it was good engagement. We got about 40 submissions. Most of the people agreed with the plan, and there were some feedback as well. Most of the feedback was around recycling in the community and how council can improve it, including enforcement actions that council can take to improve recycling quality and reduce illegal dumping. So in the revised or the final version of the WMMP, we have incorporated all those suggestions. There were some other suggestions that we found they were difficult to implement. So some of them we have listed here, and we have talked to all these people who have given these comments, and we have been able to convince them. What you have, the attachment, it's the final version of the report, which includes all the comments that we have received. And what we are requesting the committee is to receive the report and also recommend to council to adopt the new waste management and minimization plan by end of this month. Thank you, and we'll be happy to answer questions.
Mrs. Trumper.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's pretty good reading, Prashant. Thanks, great report. Just a small comment that I wanted to find a question in. Western Bay of Plenty are going to be talking to the local construction industry around introducing a bylaw that actually manages the waste to prevent illegal dumping. Would Lakes Council be considering something along similar lines to prevent, I mean, going past some of the places yesterday, there's piles of broken concrete. Now we know that that's not, you know, that's urban waste. So how are we going to be managing that going forward? And I've always wanted to put it in the building code that if you had to pay a bond or something like that, especially in light of the public dumping. So can something be done about that?
Dumping is a major issue for us, and I know that you have been quite active in doing something about it. But at this moment, central government level, a lot of changes are happening. So government is reviewing the Waste Minimization Act, and one of the actions that's under consideration is to give councils more enforcement powers to reduce illegal dumping. So in terms of legislation, and with waste levy going up, government will have some funding as well to hopefully support those actions. So we are looking at that. And meanwhile, we'll continue to educate people. Our bylaw will be reviewed in next 2 years. So that's another opportunity that we have to see how we can reduce instances of illegal dumping.
Councillor Donaldson, and followed by Dr. Morgan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, Prashant, thanks for the plan. I've had a good read through it. And I note the plan is trying to address poor recycling awareness and commingling of recyclables and loss of recyclables to landfill. And on page 4, there are 4 major actions, and I hone in on action 2, working together with mana whenua, community groups and businesses. But it seems to me, reading through this, that a re-education of the public after when we had the lockdown and we parked recycling, everything went in the red bin. Habits, we've got into bad habits. So it looks to me like we need education. I see education mentioned briefly on page 14, but it would seem to me that there's possibly, can I take it from action 2 that working with the community will involve education as a key focus?
That's one of the most important focus of the plan. So if you look at the tables that are towards the end of the report, I think at least 1/3 of the actions that's proposed are around education and engagement. So, and you're also right about the impact of COVID lockdown on recycling. There's, again, some good things are happening at national level. Government is talking about standardizing recycling. And once that decision has been taken, we will do a vigorous campaign, and hopefully that will improve things. Thank you.
Dr. Morgan.
Kia ora, through you. Kia ora, through you, Madam Chair. Good presentation. I read through your report. Did you consider empowering the householder to a greater degree in dealing with this problem? The reason I ask this is we're creating another level of, I guess, centralised treatment, and you're asking the householder to differentiate, as Councillor Donaldson has said. But what about some of the other approaches that other councils have adopted, like Auckland City, where they provide subsidised or reduced cost bokashi composting bins in the home, and you can use that. You actually treatment at source. I'm a big fan of treatment at source, where you get rid of a lot of your problem by keeping it local, keeping the responsibility local, and then that can be integrated back into gardens. And I mean, it's pretty big on Waiheke Island. I think our community's got the opportunity to be doing gardens and things like that. And it's an excellent resource. You don't have to go and buy at the Bunnings or something to buy some concentrated nutrients, because bokashi do the job for you. They're doing the separation anyway. So has that been thought about? Because I do believe that it shifts the thinking more from dependency on a council service to resilience within the community and being able to look after ourselves. Kia ora.
That's a very good suggestion, Dr. Morgan. If you look at the plan, once again, the action points, we have got home composting education as one of the actions, and so is the considerations around whether council can support the equipment required for home composting. So we are considering that, but we've also looked at in terms of the surveys that's available in Australia and New Zealand, and also with the government. So recently a lot of data has been released which shows that less than 10% of the households in a community, they compost actively, and out of that 10%, only 1% of those people compost everything that can be composted. And it does require, I compost at home, and it does require dedication. And often environmentalists, we assume that people don't do the right thing, but it does require some dedication, some effort. If you're going away on long leave, sometimes things may not go wrong. Sometimes you put bad things. Sometimes it's an invitation to pests and rats. So not everybody can do it. What we also have to be really careful about is that government is also considering mandating curbside collection of food waste. So when we are considering options, we are very careful that it aligns with what the government is proposing. So, but whatever happens, I think council will be supporting home composting options. That's a very good option.
I home compost as well, just for the record.
Thank you.
Councillor Bentley.
Thank you, Madam Chair, through you. Thank you for your report this morning. In July last year, Dr. Michael Quinton wrote to Council, and I would imagine that Stavros would know about it, that he was interested in discussing with Council taking some or all of organic and food waste for his vermicasting project. Has anyone pursued that?
You may have heard that night market recently we did trial with food waste diversion. So all of that food waste went to Michael's plant in Taupo. So we had a meeting with him after he contacted council. Stavros was in the meeting, and since then we have talked on several occasions. Recently, when we developed model for organic waste diversion, the cost model, then we invited expression of interest from industry, and Mainoki was one of the companies which gave us the, which expressed interest. So that discussion is ongoing, and they will hopefully participate in the procurement process if the project goes ahead.
Councillor Yates.
Tēnā koe o tira ki te tirara. Through you, Madam Chair, my question is around the curbside recycling, and whilst some of our streets might be, it might not be appropriate, I suppose, to widen certain parts of the footpaths, when there's only a small section of a particular long road that is compromising the other parts of the road, do you have any other alternatives to look at ways in which we can increase footpaths to allow curbside recycling? I'm speaking about a specific one. You might be well and truly familiar with the one I'm referring to, but in this particular case, we have a person that is partially blind, and her daily walks along our particular street is often compromised on a Thursday.
We have talked about it before in transport team and waste team. We inspected that street. From waste collection perspective, if it's just a small section, there's no problem moving the bins around. But it gets very difficult if the road corridor is narrow. And in that instance, that was quite difficult because there's no road shoulder. The road corridor is very narrow. The pavement is followed by electric poles. So it's quite unfortunate that we can't do much there. But in general, if we receive a complaint like that, we go and investigate. And if something can be moved, we do try and move. So,
Thank Thank you, Prashant. I just needed to have that open because a few of our community have come to me, being the local councillor in that area, and have often asked what can be done. So I just needed that to be put into the public domain. So thank you.
You've got one final question from Councillor Wang. And could we please just keep the questions related to the adoption of the plan? We're not delving into the operational stuff. I realise, Councillor Yates, that you wanted to get that out into the community, but could we just please stick to the motion on the table? That's going to be put on the table, sorry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Prashant. Cool, I'll try and keep it short and sweet. Thank you for the presentation, and we've discussed this multiple times already. I guess my question really is around, with the projection and the increase in the population, as noted in the report, and consequently the increase in the waste generation as well, related to the recycling, in certain communities, and like you've mentioned before, recycling takes a lot of dedication, right? But in certain communities, I would say it's probably the last thing on their mind, you know, how to properly recycle, and it's probably also another reason why we have such a high rate of contamination as well. But I use like a recent example, I think, for Tātou Pounamu and what they're wanting to do out east side, increasing participation and actually community pride as well, but they're doing a neighbourhood by neighbourhood approach, because as we know, each neighbourhood is quite different. You know, the people make the neighbourhood, but they're having clean-up days, promotions in local schools and involving school kids, rangatahi, and I just wonder from your perspective, the neighbourhood by neighbourhood approach and how we increase that participation, especially from the kids. I think if we get the kids, and the kids will go on and tell their parents, and then hopefully the parents will have that buy-in as well, because from a little tell-off by the kids. But I guess what I'm wanting to ask really is around the education aspect that Councillor Donaldson mentioned as well, and the real importance of it, because I think there is a lack of that in the community. And how do we simplify it? You know, how do we simplify it? Often it's, I get told this many times, oh, it's too complicated. You know, there's so many things that, you know, what to do. They don't know what to do. So, you know, how do we simplify it, and how do we get that message out there?
Thank you, Councillor Wang. In my opinion, I think it became complicated when changes started happening in 2018. People suddenly didn't know what to recycle and what not to recycle. But now the country is going towards recycling standardization, and then you will see TV ads or ads on Netflix and radio. So that will help us at local level. But at the same time, government is proposing 20 cents refundable deposit on the container deposit scheme. So all the cans, glass, they will have a refundable deposit, and a lot of people will take more notice of those things. So that will be another policy tool from government that will help us significantly. So, but meanwhile, we'll carry on the education efforts that we are doing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. There don't appear to be any further questions, so I'm now going to ask for a mover and a seconder for the motion that the committee recommends to Council to adopt the Waste Management and Minimisation Plan 2022 to 2028. Do I have a mover? Councillor?
I'd like to move that. Oh, I'll second after Councillor Wang.
Oh, I'm sorry, I accepted Councillor Bentley as the mover of the motion. I will accept you as the seconder of the motion, Mrs. Trumper. I'm now open for a round of discussion and comments. Councillor Bentley, as the mover, would you like to have the first opportunity to make any comments?
No, I think I appreciate what the men of work has been done to date, and I think the sooner we can get this underway, the better.
Thank you, Councillor Bentley. Mrs. Trumper?
I echo those words. I think the team has been doing an incredible job. It hasn't been easy, and I just think it's an incredible opportunity for Rotorua to actually take a lead. Let's get going.
Don't appear to be any further comments. No. I'm now going to put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. And thank you very much for that. That's ensured that we get our Ministry for the Environment levies continued.
Yes, thank you.
We're now going to keep the same presenters, I think, and we're going to move on to the organic waste collection commencement of consultation. We're on page 16 of the agenda, councillors and community board members. Can I ask for a mover and a seconder to receive the report, that the report Organic Waste Collection Commence Consultation be received? Moved Councillor Wang, seconded Councillor Donaldson. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. I'll invite Prashant to present the report again.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This report follows from the workshop that happened a few days back on organics waste diversion. So in that workshop, we described the background for this work and outlined a few options and their impacts, also what they are going to cost. So what we are requesting the committee is to recommend to Council to approve public consultation on organic waste diversion. And we'll be happy to answer questions if there are any.
Councillor Tapsell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you. I just had two questions. One on the financial budget considerations. It does mention in the report there's no actions required at this stage, but I was just wanting to know, does that mean that the cost for going out for consultation is already covered by a budget? And then the second question as well was just around the risk that's also been identified in the report of consulting on this new service, but it may not be in place until at least a year after. And just wondered if there was a reason why it would be so long, because I would think it would be good to consult closer to the time when the service is going to be implemented so that it's not confusing, as has rightly been identified in the risk. So just if there was a reason for that, and also if the budget considerations have been taken into place. But I am very happy to support the FOGO going out for consultation.
Thank you, Councillor Tapsell. My understanding is that when we went for public consultation on LTP 2021, the budget for organic waste diversion was included there. So that was the reason we did not highlight that here. And for the second question on why there is a lag between consultation and service delivery, so the timeline, the way it is that if we go for public consultation now in May and June period, there will be a report to Council afterwards. And once that's approved, then we'll go for procurement. And that procurement process, negotiations, contract signing, it's going to take some time. And once that process is concluded, we have got a contractor. That contractor will need 9 to 12 months' time to prepare for service delivery. Just to give you an idea, they may have to buy 5 to 6 trucks. They will have to buy up to 30,000 bins. They'll have to hire new people. We will have to educate the community around that. And the way the supply chain has been affected by COVID right now, that when we extended curbside collection services to Nakuru area, getting 300 extra bins took about 3 months. So we have put about 3 months buffer period just to make sure that there are no surprises there. But these are the reasons that if we collect 10,000 tons of organic waste and that is going to a processing facility, that facility will have to be scaled up and they will need at least 6 months time to do that. So, so unfortunately, we have to have that lag between the consultation and service delivery.
Could I just also ask if Thomas would like to make a comment on the cost of the consultation?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a reminder to councillors that our engagement team at the moment is focusing on a couple of other items for consultation. So this piece of work, Una's team is working with an external consultant to do the separate consultation. the cost of that is not included into the budgets, and at a later date we will come back to you on what that costs.
Thank you for that clarification. Did you have a second question, Councillor Tapsell? No? Mrs Trumper?
So around the consultation, Prashant, just wondered which areas you were going to target. Is the consultation document only going to the urban boundary, or is it going to be going out to the wider district?
At this stage, we are only considering urban areas, and I think the one reason is that all the cost models that have been developed and those numbers have been validated by the expression of interest that we received, but all of them were based on urban areas. If we are extending, or if you are indicating that the services will be extended to rural areas, those costs will change significantly. So we are proposing stage-wise approach where we'll go for urban areas first before we go to rural areas. And I think at this stage, we will be going for urban area consultation only.
One more question, if I may, Madam Chair.
Sure.
So then in your presentation at the workshop, you mentioned that the Minister was indicating that areas with a population of 1,000 or more were going to be picked up. Well, I would put Mamaku into that particular area of that population. So I'm just trying to gauge whether, I'm just talking about our rural village of Mamaku today, and I just wondered if there was consideration, considering it's not going to be delivered until 2024.
We are considering Mamaku because the trucks are going to Nongontaha, and Mamaku is not that far and it's a relatively dense area. So Mamaku is most likely to be covered in that scheme. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Maxwell?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Namaste.
Namaste.
I too enjoyed the workshop that you presented to us a couple of weeks ago. Can I refer to page 28 and just ask if you've given a bit more thought to, I guess I'm thinking of consistency. The blue bins are fortnightly, yellow, red, they're fortnightly, and then the green FOGO is going to be weekly. And this is going out to consultation, but I was thinking of consistency. Wouldn't it be better to have everything all fortnightly? Not only for cost, but, and then during the consultation, let people come back and say whether they wanted that weekly to be considered. Have you given it a bit more thought on that one?
My personal preference will be to collect everything fortnightly, so I agree with you. However, the food waste, there are health and safety risks associated with that, and so are the odor issues. So when we review the waste management plan, we have to consult the medical officer of health, and their suggestion was that it must be collected weekly, and that's the guideline from government as well, because otherwise there'll be a lot of issues around those bins. So that's the reason. Thank you.
Are there any further questions? There don't appear to be any, so I'm now going to ask for a mover and a seconder for the motion that the committee recommends to Council to commence public consultation on the introduction of an organic waste collection service. Can I have a mover?
I'll move it. Thank you.
Moved Councillor Wang, seconded Councillor Kumar. Are there any comments? Councillor Wang, since you're the mover.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll keep it short, but I just want to thank Prashant and Nikki, Stavros, the team, for going back with all the presentations and the work going on into this. It's desperately needed, and like what Prashant said at the last forum, it's our largest tool to fight our emissions and to combat our emissions and climate change as well. So really appreciate the work that you guys are doing, and really look forward to moving ahead with the consultation and hopefully the introduction of the FOGO system.
Thank you to Councillor Wayne. Councillor Kumar, as a seconder of the motion.
Through the chair, thank you, Dr. Prashant and Stavros and Nikki. I think it's been long coming. We're looking for better ways to minimize our waste, and this has been a long work in progress, and hopefully we take away the clutter and this so that it's to better environment.
Are there any further comments? You don't. Oh, Councillor Tapsell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, I just want to reiterate the importance of going out for public consultation on this. There has been a lot of work. We know that the research is there that over half of our waste is made up of organics, so it is wise and prudent for us to be looking at how we can best minimise our waste, because when we put it in the bin, it disappears and people often forget about it, but it does need to go somewhere, and eventually that somewhere will add up. So it's not only looking after the needs for now, but for future generations in our environment as well. So I really look forward to hearing what the community has to say about it. Yes, there will be a cost for implementing this, but the taxes that will come from the government, I think it's obvious that not only is this going to provide benefits environmentally, but also economically, as well as we deal with costs for having to reduce our waste. So thank you for the work that's happened, and yeah, look forward to seeing the results and making a decision at that time.
And thank you, Councillor Tapsell, and thank you to the team, Prashant, Nikki and Stavros. There don't appear to be any further comments, so the motion has been moved and seconded. So I'll put, oh, sorry, Your Worship.
I do want to just say something on this, and I congratulate the councillors for knowing that this is an incredibly important issue for our community. And we added in, by consultation, costs that we must be aware of. But it was something that we couldn't not do. We had to do it. And I remember the children that marched on the climate change march, and they had very simple placards, and it said, "We only have one planet." And this is an issue that is urgent now. And I'm just so delighted that we seem to be unanimous on this. Take it out to consultation. It was one of the best presentations we've had as councillors and elected members at our workshop, and that convinced us. So it shows us that when it's the right thing to do, we're prepared to be brave and do it. And I really am delighted. It's the next step. It's not just waste minimisation. This is the next big step that we can take towards mitigating the impact of climate change, which is around us every day now. So congratulations to councillors and to the staff for a brilliant presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Worship. I will now put that motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Page 31 now of the agenda. We are now going into the public excluded section of the meeting. The three items for consideration in the public excluded session. They are the confidential minutes of the meeting held on the 10th of March, the Sir Howard Morrison Performing Arts Centre update, and the Te Whare Tonga Aotearoa Building Project update. The reasons for confidentiality are to enable commercial activities, to enable commercial or industrial negotiations, and to prevent the use of information for improper gain or advantage. Can I ask for a mover and a seconder to move into public excluded? Moved Councillor Donaldson, seconded Councillor Wang. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. We will now just wait a few minutes for the live streaming to be stopped.